Republicans will come back with these very obstructionist views. We don't want a Washington, D.C. style politics coming to our state house.
Democrats lay out their plan to try to turn the state assembly blue.
You can't take anything for granted.
And our face-off panel weighs in on whether that plan may actually work.
We have to go in there.
It's being broadcast right into Iowa. Is that
Exactly.
right? Okay.
Plus, one we have been waiting a while to unveil, presidential candidates reacting to our question about whether Nevada's caucus should be moved up on the calendar.
From 8 News Now, this is Politics Now with Steve Sebelius and Patrick Walker.
Well, Nevada's state and local candidates are now filing for office. Thanks for joining us. I'm Patrick Walker.
And I'm Steve Sebelius. The 2-week period to file for state and local offices ends on Friday. Many candidates who are running for re-election have already filed their paperwork. That includes Clark County Commission Chairman Steve Sisolak. Others, such as Republican Assemblywoman Michelle Fiore, are giving up their seats to file for higher office. Fiore filed to run in the 3rd Congressional District, where she'll challenge State Senate Majority Leader Michael Roberson for Joe Heck's congressional seat.
Well, the Nevada legislature turned Republican during that so-called red wave of 2014 and still reeling from that swing. Nevada Democrats announced their plan to regain control of the state assembly this week.
We're currently doing our polling.
Outside the Clark County Elections Office, Democrats announced they are taking back the state assembly.
Republicans will come back with these very obstructionist views. We don't want a Washington, D.C. style politics coming to our state house.
Assembly Democratic Caucus Chair Irene Bustamante Adams says her party is focusing endorsements on a single candidate in each targeted district. Democrats need 5 seats to regain the majority in Carson City, and the party believes former Assemblyman Jason Frierson is a shoo-in for one of them.
The math is on our side. There are 9 assembly seats here in Clark County alone that have a Democratic advantage.
District 9 candidate Steve Yeager, an attorney with the Public Defender's Office, says the ballot initiatives dealing with recreational marijuana and background checks for gun purchases have high interest with younger voters, an advantage for Democrats.
The goal there is going to be to make sure they vote all the way down the ballot and just don't come and vote the ballot initiatives.
Democrats believe 3 of the 9 districts they are targeting are, quote, slam dunks, where registered Democratic voters significantly outnumber Republicans. The other 6 districts have slightly more Democratic voters, even though Republicans hold the seats. No matter how the election goes in November, Democrats say working with the remaining Republicans will be a top priority.
I'll say this, the Republicans who were taking on serious issues were the ones working with Democrats. And those are the ones that helped get actual good policy done.
Well, voters will be hitting the polls for the primary election now in just 3 months. That's June 14th. So, Steve, do they have a good roadmap to get that plan done? And what role do you think Trump will have on the Republican side, being the standard bearer setting policy, at least at the national level?
Well, yeah, you saw Donald Trump, even as late as this morning in his news conference, was endorsed by Ben Carson, talking about how he's bringing millions of people into the Republican Party who weren't there before. Certainly, he got thousands of people in our caucus who didn't vote before and drove up those numbers higher than they've ever been. So you got to factor that in. On the other hand, remember, these are individual districts, and so the Trump effect may not have that same carryover in some of those districts. Jason Frierson's being one. He lost by only 40 votes. I expect he'll probably get reelected.
And Trump even said himself that he was the reason, I remember covering him on caucus night, he was the reason why the record turnout had happened for the Republicans. Maybe there is something to that, of course. But
yeah, I don't know if Trump can trump gerrymandering.
There you go. Well, we asked our face-off panel, conservative KXNT radio host Alan Stock and Battleborn Progress executive director Annette Magnus, if this is possible, if Democrats can take over the assembly, and what issues they would use to do it. A little bit about the assembly. The Democrats, the Nevada Democrats, are saying we're going to take back the assembly. They've targeted 9 seats. They think 3 of them are pretty much slam dunks or shoo-ins. They need 5. Are they going to take back the assembly in 2017?
You know, I think they're going to have a good chance. I think you can't take anything for granted, and I feel like we saw some of that last time, and we really need to make sure that the candidates have their eye on the ball, both on the Republican and the Democratic side. Nobody can take anything for granted. I think if you look at those seats, there are, like you said, there are 9 that are going to be competitive. 3 of those have very high Democratic voter registration advantages. They only need to take back 5, and I do think they can do that if they are smart, if they, talk about the issues that were brought up during the legislative session. Sure, they were able to bring up an education bill, but there were also some really bad bills that the Republican Assembly folks push forward, like the transgender bathroom bill, all of the prevailing wage, all of these very extreme bills that they were pushing forward. And so I think those are going to come back to haunt them this year. And I think in a presidential year where we see turnout on the Democratic side a lot higher, I think you're going to see, those races become very competitive. And I think you see them take them back.
It's interesting about the transgender bathroom bill, because this is one of the most extreme things that have come from left-wing Democrats in a long time, trying to get children to little girls to be present while boys can undress in front of them, and saying that's okay and normal. People know that that's a horrific thing, and the bottom line is I think that's going to help turnout on the right. In 2014 we had a turnout generally across the country much more conservative, and the whole feeling is now going much more conservative. 15, the off-year elections, everything conservative, including the anti-pot bills and everything else that went on in the country. And I think the trend will continue this way if Republicans don't cannibalize themselves at the top. I'm talking about the presidential. And if they're unified at the top for the president and turn out in the numbers I think they will, I think that they'll take over. We'll keep the Assembly and the Senate. One last thing I want to say, I'm not sure that it matters, because we had the Assembly and the Senate last time in every constitutional office, and we got the highest tax increase in the history of Nevada with Republicans in control. I'm not sure if we want to stay that way.
Well, the Democrats would argue then that the most conservative wing in the Assembly, those are the folks that they would say are not pushing for serious bills. Of course, they didn't go for the tax increase, obviously, but is that a fair characterization that their issues that they were pushing for weren't serious?
No, there were very serious issues they're pushing for. Voter ID is definitely something that the overwhelming majority, over 2/3 of the people in the state of Nevada, want voter ID, and we didn't get it. And we had Republicans in charge. Barbara Sagafsky went ahead, our Secretary of State now, went ahead and politicked for it, and we didn't get it. So what did we get? We got the ESA, which we're fighting right now, Educational Savings Account, and hopefully that'll go through. But we also got a large tax increase. So what else do they really accomplish? I mean, I'm trying to look at this on both sides here.
And you also look at those other 6 seats that are being targeted. They're real slim Democratic majorities as far as voter turnout, 3, 4, 5%. But they are Republicans that are in there. There were Republicans that were taken in 14. So that goes back to your point. You can't take it for granted.
Can't take it for granted, but a lot of those Republicans are part of this Bundy caucus that I see moving forward. These extreme right-wing candidates that do not represent Nevadans. They do not represent our values. People do not support voter ID. They know that that is a way to suppress voting. People do not support that discriminatory transgender bathroom bill. That was a hateful bill, and it should have never even been brought up. People do not support campus carry. Overwhelmingly, the polling shows that they do not support that. These are issues that Bundy caucus pushed forward. And you have the unconstitutional Bundy bill that Michelle Fiore and her followers pushed forward. So we know these issues are going to be brought up on the campaign trail, and I think they have to be very worried about those issues coming up.
I would need to say one thing, that the polls in fact show the opposite about the transgender bathroom bill and about the voter ID.
Absolutely
overwhelmingly, people want voter ID. People do not want boys undressing a girl's bathroom, because today they feel a little bit different.
That is
those polls show
not
exactly
true.
what I'm saying. Campus carry, I think, was a little more even-handed, and the majority of Republicans do not support the so-called Bundy caucus, or whatever you were calling it. There are a few people, literally I think 3, who are supporting that end of it. Most Republicans are going, yeah, please, and keeping hands off of that, though.
Well, we also talked about Michelle Fiore running for Congress and the presidential race moving forward. We've posted the entire face-off segment on our website, LasVegasNow.com. Well, the ACLU is threatening to sue the state of Nevada, saying it's too hard for people to register to vote through the DMV.
Well, as you may recall, the 1993 motor voter law specifies voters should be able to register to vote or to change their voter registration address at the DMV. The ACLU says Nevada requires voters to fill out separate forms for both. They could sue if they don't feel the problem has been resolved within 90 days. Now, Secretary of State Barbara Sagafsky said her office is examining the ACLU's complaint and, quote, Our office has been communicating with the DMV for several months to establish a timeline for the modernization of the DMV's voter registration system and is working toward a solution, unquote.
Well, when you look at the numbers, Nevada does have the 5th worst voter registration rate, with a little less than 60% of eligible voters actually registered. So this is a type of thing that can play a role there.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you go in to register at the DMV, everybody has to do that. Unfortunately, we've all had to wait in those lines. It should be very convenient, and it's apparently not as convenient as it probably could be. Well, coming up, when should Nevadans get to their chance to vote for president?
I'm biased. I'm biased.
Absolutely,
I have a lot of family members living
Indulge
here.
your bias, sir.
Well, I have a lot of family members living here.
We will show you how all the presidential candidates answered that question next. Stay with us.
CBS Sunday, April 3rd.
We're back in Vegas, baby, for country music's party of the year.
It's the ACM Awards with superstar performers Florida Georgia Line, Carrie Underwood, Blake Shelton, Chris Stapleton, Eric Church, Keith Urban, Kelsey Ballerini, Sam Hunt, Jason Aldean, Thomas Rhett, Cam, Kenny Chesney, and your hosts Luke Bryan and Dirks Bentley.
Join me and the new guy.
The Academy of Country Music Awards, live CBS Sunday, April 3rd, or stream it live.
Henderson Hyundai.
I think Henderson Hyundai Superstore is the #1 dealer in Nevada because of their aftermarket service.
From the service to the finance to the salespeople, everyone is fantastic at Henderson Hyundai Superstore. They're our family. We ended up coming back to Henderson Hyundai Superstore because they were no pressure.
I would recommend the Henderson Hyundai Superstore to anybody.
Henderson Hyundai Superstore, home of the done deal.
The world is getting more dangerous. Your home may not be as safe as you think. Trust Rolladen Rolling Shutters to protect your home, your business, and especially your family. Your windows alone can't stop burglars. You need the protection only Rolladen Rolling Shutters can provide. With durable construction and insulation, you'll be safe and secure while saving up to 60% off your energy bills. Rolladen introduces Fire Sense. It automatically opens your shutters in case of fire. Call Rolladen Rolling Shutters for details. 702-878-1072 for your peace of mind.
The Race Now on Politics Now is sponsored by NV Energy. We are putting all of our energy into your energy.
Precision Opinion is now hiring for political season. All you have to do is talk on the phone and gather opinions. Help give the people a voice this election season and come down to Precision Opinion March 14th between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Begin your new job. What are you waiting for?
Dr. Phil, weekdays at 3 on 8 News Now. Welcome back to Politics Now.
Well, Nevada's First in the West caucus has two major things that set it apart from the other 3 states in the first 4.
Well, first, Nevada is home to a major urban city, that's Las Vegas. And second, Nevada's population represents the ethnic diversity of the United States. That's one of the ways Senator Harry Reid sold the Democratic Party on an early caucus for Nevada.
We had our first focus on something other than Iowa and New Hampshire. Those 2 states shouldn't determine who's going to be president of the United States. Did you see the diversity in Iowa last night? Those huge crowds? I saw it. There wasn't any. And then, of course, we go whip off to New Hampshire. Not many people live there, and there's no diversity.
Well, we started interviewing presidential candidates on this show here back in October, and there was one question we asked every single one. Should Nevada be ahead of New Hampshire and Iowa?
Now, as you can imagine, that was not a question many candidates wanted to answer right before begging voters in those first 2 states to support them. Here are the results.
Do you think Nevada, because of the diversity, because of the middle class that is present here, should Nevada be higher in the presidential caucus? Do you think it would be more?
Biased. I'm biased because I have a lot
Absolutely,
of family
yeah.
members living
Indulge
here.
your bias, sir.
Well, I have a lot of family members living here, and obviously spent a significant amount of time here, and have stayed and come back almost once a year since then because we have more family living here than we do in Florida. But I like coming here. I think it's the only Mountain West state, for example, that's in the early process. And so, you know, I think Iowa and New Hampshire play a key role in this process. It's good that our next president has to go on a rent-a-car and meet 100 people in person repeatedly. But I also think it's good to have the western states represented, and I think Nevada has positioned itself as a place that's been able to do that. And obviously, the Las Vegas, Southern Nevada market is the single largest, but we've had significant visits as well to the rural areas and parts of the state. And so I personally like the fact that Nevada is earlier in the process. Maybe some other people do not, but we're excited to be coming here. It gives us one more excuse to catch up with family.
Could you make a case, or would you support a case maybe that the Nevada caucuses should be held higher up, maybe one of the first or second? We have to go in there.
It's being broadcast right into Iowa. Is that
exactly,
right?
Exactly.
All right, we'll let others make that decision. But let me just say this. We are delighted to be here in Nevada, and you're going to see more of me than you'll probably you get bored of seeing me. We think we have a chance to do really, really well here.
Moving up Nevada to an earlier part in the state, would not that produce a nominee that is more representative of what America looks like today than the way we've traditionally done things?
I don't think it matters so much as to what point in the process Nevada is, as long as Nevada is in the process. And I think that when the parties brought in Nevada, it was new to the caucus system. It takes a while to get your caucus system up and going, and people in Nevada are working really hard, and my staff on the ground is just first rate, so I'm very pleased about where I am in Nevada. And these questions can be raised going forward. I get Senator Reed's point. He is a strong advocate for his state, but I'm just happy that it's in the first four. It used to be just the first two, remember? It was just Iowa, New Hampshire, and then it was off to the races around the country. And the fact that it is Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Nevada, I think adds to the, to the reality of the electorate, and I think that's all to the good.
Do you think Nevada ought to be higher in the primary calendar because it more represents America than either of the two early states before us, Iowa and New Hampshire?
I think everybody thinks that they ought to be higher. I think that's a natural tendency. But I think the system works quite well. I've been impressed by the level of interest here in Nevada. A lot of people seem to actually know what the issues are. And I think part of that is because of the early status that the state has. So I think that's a good thing.
From your campaigning, do you think Nevada ought to be moved up in the primary process, or do you think it should stay in the third position?
Nevada has a very important role to play because it is a very diverse state, because it's representative of so many of the issues. But I must say, it's also true that Iowa and New Hampshire have developed a core competence in vetting candidates, and they spend a lot of time doing it. And back to the issue we talked about with identity politics, think about an issue that Americans are wrestling with. Those issues exist in Iowa and New Hampshire: drug addiction, poverty, the stagnation of middle-class incomes, the deterioration in the quality of education, crime, gun violence, all those issues that everyone in America is concerned about exist in Iowa and New Hampshire as well.
Now, there are decades of history and plenty of home state pride involved in the order of caucuses and primaries, and the two earliest states have fought hard to keep their places on the calendar. But with Iowa 91% white, and New Hampshire 96% white, the lack of diversity argument holds water.
Well, you can see how those candidates all kind of dodged the question we asked. You got that question in most of the time. I got it a couple times. Well, Bernie giving me a little bit of a blowback there, all in good fun, of course.
The best answer, Bernie Sanders, on that question.
I think we can all agree that was probably the best articulated answer.
Absolutely.
Well, coming up, the race for president, we will lay out where the candidates stand right now and the big date that will wildly swing the race coming up this week.
You get in an accident, you're hurt, you call Ed.
Ed Bernstein?
You can handle it yourself, or you can call Ed Bernstein.
Don't try to do it on your own.
Enough said. Call Ed.
Don't let your plumbing go extinct. Call the experts at Raptor Plumbing. Our clean and courteous plumbers are specially trained and up to date on the newest technologies. We've got your fix. Call or visit RaptorPlumbing.com today.
All my kids' friends love hanging out here.
What's up, my peeps?
Because I'm a cool mom.
Heather knows why this is the cool house.
yeah, your internet's blazing. We can all be on at the same time. That's not why.
Mrs. Curtis is nice, but the Wi-Fi is great.
Hey, sorry, I didn't know you were filming. What? Twinsies. Stop copying me.
Get access to the fastest in-home Wi-Fi with Cox high-speed internet from just $19.99 a month.
Got a car? Got a title? Turn them into cash with Title Max.
I got $1,000. $2,500.
$10,000. Title Max accepts all makes, all models, and you can get your cash in as little as 30 minutes. Title Max has competitive rates in over 1,200 locations. Next time you need cash, take your title to Title Max and say,
I got my title back with Title Max.
Call 1-88-TITLE MAX or go to TitleMax.com.
Get your title back with Title Max.
Monday morning, getting ready for the biggest road project the Valley's seen in years.
The Las Vegas landmark being demolished to make way for Project Neon.
It may be inconvenient for a little bit, but in the long run, you're going to be so much happier.
Plus, get ready for a big cone zone. A $1.6 million road project kicks off on Monday. What crews will be doing and how long the work's expected to take.
And trying to pick the right doctor, it's not the easiest of tasks.
We'll show you how to find the best physician with just a few easy steps. That story and more coming up Monday morning.
Welcome back to Politics Now.
More than 350 law school professors have signed a letter to the Senate asking the Republican majority to give a hearing to a potential Supreme Court nominee. The letter calls the leadership's refusal to give a hearing to a nominee an abdication of duty contrary to the intent of the authors of the Constitution. The letter also notes that many legal observers fear the consequences of a deeply divided court that's short one member during a term where many significant issues are awaiting decisions.
And this is The Race Now, where we recap the big political stories of the week. First off, let's take a look at the delegate totals in the presidential race. Hillary Clinton has a little less than a third of the votes that she needs to win the nomination. However, Bernie Sanders is hanging tough with more than 450 delegates, 540 delegates, and what appears to be significant momentum in the Midwest after a win in Michigan. Clinton has almost all the super delegates pledged to her, but that can change if those super delegates change their minds. On the Republican side, Donald Trump continues to be the front runner with Ted Cruz about 100 delegates behind. The race could narrow after this week if Marco Rubio loses in Florida and drops out. And the GOP candidates took the debate stage on Thursday night. It was a kinder and gentler debate. The biggest policy difference during the night came when Trump claimed Social Security is fine as it stands as long as we get rid of the fraudulent cases.
Fraud is not enough. Certainly, let's wipe out the fraud, but as you said, it won't add up. You already gave those numbers.
But the answer can't just be wave a magic wand and say, problem, go away.
This is not a theory. Do you have to take on entitlement programs to balance a budget? Yes, but doesn't mean you have to cut them.
Well, Trump also picked up an endorsement from Dr. Ben Carson, who said there is another cerebral version of Trump that he likes. Well, on Wednesday night, the Democrats squared off in Miami. Immigration reform dominated the Univision-sponsored debate.
I voted for that bill. Senator Sanders voted against it. Just think, imagine where we would be today if we had achieved comprehensive immigration reform 9 years ago.
Children came from Honduras, and I said, welcome those children into this country. Secretary Clinton said, send them back.
Well, the questioners did not pull any punches, asking Clinton about possibly being indicted, whether she lied about Benghazi and being seen as untrustworthy. Host George Ramos did follow up on many of the questions, pressing for firm answers. So I think now we look at how important Tuesday is coming up more when you look at the Republican side.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a make or break day for both Governor John Kasich in Ohio, who looks like he's probably going to win his home state, and Senator Marco Rubio in Florida, who looks like he's probably going to lose his home state. And if he loses that, I don't see really any pathway for him to continue in the race. And even for Governor Kasich, if he wins Ohio, I mean, that's literally the minimum you can expect if you lose your home state. I mean, that's it. But what's his pathway other than Ohio? And I don't know if there really is one for him as well.
Well, even with that loss, if Rubio gets that in Florida, is there any path or any chance at an open or brokered convention?
There still probably is a chance at that, but I think, Trump is just adding these numbers up state after state. And so I think mathematically it becomes very, very difficult for some of the other candidates to go after him. But as things start to consolidate more into a two-man race with him and Ted Cruz, that could always change as well.
Of course, we will be keeping a close score on Tuesday night. Well, a turning point, speaking of, what needs to happen in Florida and Ohio for the Republican presidential candidates? Next.